Learn English through Stories D42 PDF. Adapted and modified by Kulwant Singh Sandhu. Contents 1. The Room of Many Colors, Part 1-2, Grammar Page. 1. The Room of Many Colors, Part 1. By Ruskin Bond. Last week I wrote a story, and all the time I was writing it I thought it was a good story. But when it was finished and I had read it through, I found that there was something missing, that it didn't ring true. So I tore it up. I wrote a poem about an old man sleeping in the sun, and this was true, but it was finished quickly, and once again I was left with the problem of what to write next. And I remembered my father, who taught me to write, and I thought, why not write about my father, and about the trees we planted, and about the people I knew while growing up, and about what happened on the way to growing up. And so, like Alice, I must begin at the beginning, and in the beginning there was this red insect, just like a velvet button, which I found on the front lawn of the bungalow. The grass was still wet with overnight rain. I placed the insect on the palm of my hand and took it into the house to show my father. "Look, Dad," I said, "I haven't seen an insect like this before. Where has it come from?" "Where did you find it?" he asked. "On the grass." "It must have come down from the sky," he said. "It must have come down with the rain." Later he told me how the insect really happened, but I preferred his first explanation. It was more fun to have it dropping from the sky. I was 7 at the time, and my father was 37, but, right from the beginning, he made me feel that I was old enough to talk to him about everything: insects, people, trees, steam engines, King George comics, crocodiles, the Mahatma, the Viceroy, America, Mozambique, and Timbuktu. We took long walks together, explored old ruins, chased butterflies, and waved to passing trains. My mother had gone away when I was 4, and I had very dim memories of her. Most other children had their mothers with them, and I found it a bit strange that mine couldn't stay. Whenever I asked my father why she'd gone, he'd say, "You'll understand when you grow up," and if I asked him where she'd gone, he'd look troubled and say, "I really don't know." This was the only question of mine to which he didn't have an answer. But I was quite happy living alone with my father. I had never known any other kind of life. We were sitting on an old wall, looking out to sea at a couple of Arab dhows and a tram steamer, when my father said, "Would you like to go to sea one day?" "Where does the sea go?" I asked. "It goes everywhere." "Does it go to the end of the world?" "It goes right round the world. It's a round world. It can't be." "It is, but it's so big you can't see the roundness. When a fly sits on a watermelon, it can't see right round the melon, can it? The melon must seem quite flat to the fly. Well, in comparison to the world, we're much, much smaller than the tiniest of insects." "Have you been around the world?" I asked. "No, only as far as England. That's where your grandfather was born." "And my grandmother?" "She came to India from Norway when she was quite small. Norway is a cold land, with mountains and snow, and the sea cutting deep into the land. I was there as a boy. It's very beautiful, and the people are good and work hard. I'd like to go there." "You will one day. When you are older, I'll take you to Norway." "Is it better than England?" "It's quite different." "Is it better than India?" "It's quite different." "Is India like England?" "No, it's different." "Well, what does different mean?" "It means things are not the same. It means people are different. It means the weather is different. It means tree and birds and insects are different. Are English crocodiles different from Indian crocodiles? They don't have crocodiles in England. Oh, then it must be different. It would be a dull world if it was the same everywhere, said my father. He never lost patience with my endless questioning. If he wanted a rest, he would take out his pipe and spend a long time lighting it. If this took very long, I'd find something else to do. But sometimes I'd wait patiently until the pipe was drawing and then return to the attack. Will we always be in India? I asked. No, we'll have to go away one day. You see, it's hard to explain, but it isn't really our country. Aya says it belongs to the King of England, and the jewels in his crown were taken from India, and that when the Indians get their jewels back, the king will lose India. But first they have to get the crown from the king, but this is very difficult, she says, because the crown is always on his head. He even sleeps wearing his crown. Aya was my nanny. She loved me deeply and was always filling my head with strange and wonderful stories. My father did not comment on Aya's views. All he said was, "We'll have to go away someday." How long have we been here? I asked. 200 years. No, I mean us. Well, you were born in India, so that's 7 years for you. Then can I stay here? Do you want to? I want to go across the sea. But can we take Aya with us? I don't know, son. Let's walk along the beach. We lived in an old palace beside a lake. The palace looked like a ruin from the outside, but the rooms were cool and comfortable. We lived in one wing, and my father organized a small school in another wing. His pupils were the children of the Raja and the Raja's relatives. My father had started life in India as a tea planter, but he had been trained as a teacher, and the idea of starting a school in a small state facing the Arabian Sea had appealed to him. The pay wasn't much, but we had a palace to live in, the latest 1938 model Hillman to drive about in, and a number of servants. In those days, of course, everyone had servants, although the servants did not have any. Aya was our own, but the cook, the bearer, the gardener, and the bhisti, a water carrier, were all provided by the state. Sometimes I sat in the schoolroom with the other children, who were all much bigger than me. Sometimes I remained in the house with Aya. Sometimes I followed the gardener Dukke about the spacious garden. Dukke means sad, and though I never could discover if the gardener had anything to feel sad about, the name certainly suited him. He had grown to resemble the drooping weeds that he was always digging up with a tiny spade. I seldom saw him standing up. He always sat on the ground with his knees well up to his chin and attacked the weeds from this position. He could spend all day on his haunches, moving about the garden simply by shuffling his feet along the grass. I tried to imitate his posture, sitting down on my heels and putting my knees into my armpits, but could never hold the position for more than 5 minutes. Time had no meaning in a large garden, and Dukke never hurried. Life for him was not a matter of 1 year succeeding another, but of 5 seasons of winter, spring, hot weather, monsoon, and autumn, arriving and departing. His seedbeds had always to be in readiness for the coming season, and he did not look any further than the next monsoon. It was impossible to tell his age. He may have been 36 or 86. He was either very young for his years or very old for them. Dukke loved bright colors, especially reds and yellows. He liked strongly scented flowers, like jasmine and honeysuckle. He couldn't understand my father's preference for the more delicately perfumed petunias and sweet peas, but I shared Dukke's fondness for the common bright orange marigold, which is offered in temples and is used to make garlands and nosegays. When the garden was bare of all color, the marigold would still be there, happy and flashy, challenging the sun. Dake was very fond of making nosukes, and I liked to watch him at work. A sunflower formed the centerpiece. It was surrounded by roses, marigolds, and oleander, fringed with green leaves and bound together with silver thread. The perfume was overpowering. The nosukes were presented to me or my father on special occasions, that is, on a birthday or to guests of my father's who were considered important. One day I found Ducky making a nosuke and said, "No one is coming today, Ducky, it isn't even a birthday." "It is a birthday, Chota Sahib," he said. Little Sahib was the title he had given me. It wasn't much of a title compared to Raja Sahib, Diwan Sahib, or Burra Sahib, but it was nice to have a title at the age of 7. "Oh," I said, "and is there a party too?" "No party." "What's the use of a birthday without a party? What's the use of a birthday without presents? This person doesn't like presents, just flowers." "Who is it?" I asked, full of curiosity. "If you want to find out, you can take these flowers to her. She lives right at the top of that far side of the palace. There are 22 steps to climb. Remember that, Chota Sahib, you take 23 steps, and you will go over the edge and into the lake." I started climbing the stairs. It was a spiral staircase of wrought iron, and it went round and up, and it made me quite dizzy and tired. At the top I found myself on a small balcony, which looked out over the lake and another palace, at the crowded city and the distant harbor. I heard a voice, a rather high musical voice, saying in English, "Are you a ghost?" I turned to see who had spoken but found the balcony empty. The voice had come from a dark room. I turned to the stairway, ready to flee, but the voice said, "Oh, don't go. There's nothing to be frightened of." And so I stood still, peering cautiously into the darkness of the room. "First, tell me, are you a ghost?" "I'm boy," I said. "And I'm a girl. We can be friends. I can't come out there, so you had better. Come in. Come along, I'm not a ghost either, not yet anyway." As there was nothing very frightening about the voice, I stepped into the room. It was dark inside, and coming in from the glare, it took me some time to make out the tiny, elderly lady seated on a cushioned gilt chair. She wore a red sari, lots of colored bangles on her wrists and golden earrings. Her hair was streaked with white, but her skin was still quite smooth and unlined, and she had large and very beautiful eyes. "You must be Master Bon," she said. "Do you know who I am?" "You're a lady with a birthday," I said, "but that's all I know. Dakai didn't tell me anymore." "If you promise to keep it secret, I'll tell you who I am. You see, everyone thinks I'm mad. Do you think so too?" "I don't know." "Well, you must tell me if you think so," she said with a chuckle. Her laugh was the sort of sound made by the gecko, a little wall lizard, coming from deep down in the throat. "I have a feeling you are a truthful boy. Do you find it very difficult to tell the truth?" "Sometimes. Sometimes. Of course, there are times when I tell lies, lots of little lies, because they're such fun. But would you call me a liar?" "I wouldn't if I were you, but would you?" "Are you a liar?" "I'm asking you. If I were to tell you that I was a queen, that I am a queen, would you believe me?" I thought deeply about this and then said, "I'll try to believe you." "Oh, but you must believe me. I'm a real queen. I'm a Rani. Look, I've got diamonds to prove it." And she held out her hands, and there was a ring on each finger, the stones glowing and glittering in the dim light. Diamonds, rubies, pearls, and emeralds, only a queen can have these. She was most anxious that I should believe her. You must be a queen, I said. Right, she snapped. In that case, would you mind calling me Your Highness? Yours Highness, I said. She smiled. It was a slow, beautiful smile. Her whole face lit up. I could love you, she said. But better still, I'll give you something to eat. Do. You like chocolates? Yes, Your Highness. Well, she said, taking a box from the table beside her, these have come all the way from England. Take 2, only 2 mine, otherwise the box will finish before Thursday. And I don't want that to happen, because I won't get any more till Saturday. That's when Captain Macwhirr's ship gets in, the SS Lucy, loaded with boxes and boxes of chocolates. All for you? I asked in considerable awe. Yes, of course. They have to last at least 3 months. I get them from England. I get only the best chocolates. I like them with pink, crunchy fillings. Don't you? Oh yes, I exclaimed, full of envy. Never mind, she said. I may give you one, now and then. If you're very nice to me, here you are, help yourself. She pushed the chocolate box towards me. I took a silver-wrapped chocolate, and then just as I was thinking of. Taking a second, she quickly took the box away. No more, she said. They have to last till Saturday. But I took only one, I said with some indignation. Did you? She gave me a sharp look, decided I was telling the truth, and said graciously, well, in that case you can have another. Watching the Rani carefully, in case she snatched the box away again, I selected a second chocolate, this one with a green wrapper. I don't remember what kind of day it was outside, but I remember the bright green of the chocolate wrapper. I thought it would be rude to eat the chocolates in front of a queen, so I put them in my pocket and said, I'd better go now, Aya will be looking for me. And when will you be coming to see me again? I don't know, I said. Your Highness, Your Highness. There's something I want you to do for me, she said, placing one finger on my shoulder and giving me a conspiratorial look. Will you do it? What is it, Your Highness? What is it? Why do you ask? A real prince never asks where or why or whatever. He simply does what the princess asks of him. When I was a princess before I became a queen, that is, I asked a prince to swim across the lake and fetch me a lily growing on the other bank. And did he get it for you? He drowned halfway across. Let that be a lesson to you. Never agree to do something without knowing what it is. But I thought you said. Never mind what I said. It's what I say that matters. Oh, all right, I said, fidgeting to be gone. What is it you want me to do? Nothing. Her tiny rosebud lips pouted, and she stared sullenly at a picture on the wall. Now that my eyes had grown used to the dim light in the room, I noticed that the walls were hung with portraits of stout Rajas and Ranis turbane and bedecked in fine clothes. There were also portraits of Queen Victoria and King George V of England. And in the center of all this distinguished company, a large picture of Mickey Mouse. I'll do it if it isn't too dangerous, I said. Then listen. She took my hand and drew me towards her. What a tiny hand she had! And whispered, I want a red rose from the palace garden, but be careful, don't let Ducky the gardener catch you, he'll know it's for me, he knows I love roses, and he hates me. I'll tell you why, one day, but if he catches you, he'll do something terrible. To me. No, to himself. That's much worse, isn't it? He'll tie himself into knots, or lie naked on a bed of thorns, or go on a long fast with nothing to eat but fruit, sweets, and chicken. So you will be careful, won't you? Oh, but he doesn't hate you, I cried in protest, remembering the flowers he'd sent for her, and looking around I found that I'd been sitting on them. Look, he sent these flowers for your birthday. Well, if he sent them for my birthday, you can take them back, she snapped. But if he sent them for me, and she suddenly softened and looked coy, then I might keep them. Thank you, my dear. It was a very sweet thought. And she leant forward as though to kiss me. It's late. I must go, I said in alarm, and turning on my heels ran out of the room and down the spiral staircase. Father hadn't started lunch, or rather tiffin as we called it then. He usually waited for me if I was late. I don't suppose he enjoyed eating alone. For tiffin we usually had rice, a mutton curry, koftas or meatballs, with plenty of gravy, was my favorite curry, fried dal and a hot lime or mango pickle. For supper we had English food, a soup, roast pork and fried potatoes, a rich gravy made by my father, and a custard or caramel pudding. My father enjoyed cooking, but it was only in the morning that he found time for it. Breakfast was his own creation. He cooked eggs in a variety of interesting ways and flavored some Italian recipes which he had collected during a trip to Europe long before I was born. In deference to the feelings of our Hindu friends, we did not eat beef, but apart from mutton and chicken, there was a plentiful supply of other meats, partridge, venison, lobster, and even porcupine. "And where have you been?" asked my father, helping himself to the rice as soon as he saw me come in. "To the top of the old palace," I said. "Did you meet anyone there?" "Yes, I met a tiny lady who told me she was a Rani. She gave me chocolates. As a rule, she doesn't like visitors." "Oh, she didn't mind me. But is she really a queen?" "Well, she's the daughter of a Maharaja. That makes her a princess. She never married. There's a story that she fell in love with a commoner, one of the palace servants, and wanted to marry him, but of course they wouldn't allow that. She became very melancholic and started living all by herself in the old palace. They give her everything she needs, but she doesn't go out or have visitors. Everyone says she's mad." "How do they know?" I asked. "Because she's different from other people, I suppose." "Is that being mad?" "No, not really. I suppose madness is not seeing things as others see them." "Is that very bad?" "No," said Father, who for once was finding it very difficult to explain something to me. "But people who are like that, people whose minds are so different that they don't think step by step as we do, whose thoughts jump all over the place, such people are very difficult to live with." "Step by step," I repeated. "Step by step." "You aren't eating," said my father. "Hurry up, and you can come with me to school today." I always looked forward to attending my father's classes. He did not take me to the schoolroom very often because he wanted school to be a treat to begin with, and then later the routine wouldn't be so unwelcome. Sitting there with older children, understanding only half of what they were learning, I felt important and part grown up. And of course I did learn to read and write, although I first learned to read upside down, by means of standing in front of the others' desks and peering across at their books. Later, when I went to school, I had some difficulty in learning to read the right way up, and even today I sometimes read upside down for the sake of variety. I don't mean that I read standing on my head, simply that I held the book upside down. I had at my command a number of rhymes and jingles, the most interesting of these being Solomon Grundy. Solomon Grundy. Born on a Monday. Christened on Tuesday. Married on Wednesday. Took ill on Thursday. Worse on Friday. Died on Saturday. Buried on Sunday. This is the end of Solomon Grundy. Was that all that life amounted to, in the end? And were we all Solomon Grundys? These were questions that bothered me at the time. Another puzzling rhyme was the one that went, "Hark, hark! The dogs do bark. The beggars are coming to town, some in rags, some in bags, and some in velvet gowns." This rhyme puzzled me for a long time. There were beggars aplenty in the bazaar, and sometimes they came to the house, and some of them did wear rags and bags, and some nothing at all, and the dogs did bark at them, but the beggar in the velvet gown never came our way. "Who's this beggar in a velvet gown?" I asked my father. "Not a beggar at all," he said. "Then why call him one?" And I went to Aya and asked her the same question. "Who is the beggar in the velvet gown?" "Jesus Christ," said Aya. Aya was a fervent Christian and made me say my prayers at night, even when I was very sleepy. She had, I think, Arab and Negro blood in addition to the blood of the Coley fishing community, to which her mother had belonged. Her father, a sailor on an Arab dhow, had been a convert to Christianity. Aya was a large, buxom woman with heavy hands and feet and a slow swaying gait that had all the grace and majesty of a royal elephant. Elephants, for all their size, are nimble creatures, and Aya too was nimble, sensitive, and gentle with her big hands. Her face was always sweet and childlike. Although a Christian, she clung to many of the beliefs of her parents and loved to tell me stories about mischievous spirits and evil spirits, humans who changed into animals, and snakes who had been princes in their former lives. There was the story of the snake who married a princess. At first the princess did not wish to marry the snake, whom she had met in a forest, but the snake insisted, saying, "I'll kill you if you won't marry me," and of course that settled the question. The snake led his bride away and took her to a great treasure. "I was a prince in my former life," he explained. "This treasure is yours." And then the snake very gallantly disappeared. Snakes, declared Aya, were very lucky omens if seen early in the morning. But what if the snake bites the lucky person? I asked. "He will be lucky all the same," said Aya with a logic that was all her own. Snakes. There were a number of them living in the big garden, and my father had advised me to avoid the long grass. But I had seen snakes crossing the road, a lucky omen, according to Aya, and they were never aggressive. "A snake won't attack you," said Father, "provided you leave it alone, of course. If you step on one, it will probably bite." "Are all snakes poisonous?" "Yes, but only a few are poisonous enough to kill a man. Others use their poison on rats and frogs. A good thing, too, otherwise during the rains the house would be taken over by the frogs." One afternoon while Father was at school, Aya found a snake in the bathtub. It was an early morning, and so the snake couldn't have been a lucky one. Aya was frightened and ran into the garden calling for help. Ducky came running. Aya ordered me to stay outside while they went after the snake. And it was while I was alone in the garden, an unusual circumstance, since Ducky was nearly always there, that I remembered the Rani's request. On an impulse, I went to the nearest rose bush and plucked the largest rose, pricking my thumb in the process. And then, without waiting to see what had happened to the snake, it finally escaped. I started up the steps to the top of the old palace. 2. Grammar page